The power behind the eye. You had decided to head back to Red Larch, which is just a short flight away from Scarlet Moon Hall, and you reach it in a few hours. When you arrive, you find the village is celebrating the holiday of Greengrass, the first day of spring. You decide to join in the festivities and celebrate well into the night before heading to your beds. All of you, that is, except Leilune, who has grown to no longer require sleep. She wanders the streets aimlessly, waiting for the sun to rise and her companions to wake, eventually sitting on the porch of the Helm at high sun to await the dawn. Dawn does indeed arrive, but with it comes visitors. As the sun rises, Leilune spots 3 travellers on foot coming south towards Red Larch on the long road. Making herself unseen, she waits before spotting that they are dressed as fire cultists, and that one of them is clearly a fire genasi. Moving stealthily, she navigates her way across the road towards the swinging sword to wake her companions, whilst the cultists appear to be waiting for the appearance of some locals. Awake and alert, you all step out of the swinging sword together, and are greeted by the genasi with an invitation to parley. He introduces himself as Bastian Thermander, and the terms of his parley are for you all to leave the Sumber Hills and never return or face dire consequences. Whilst this discussion is happening, you notice that one of the cultists is carrying a small wooden box in his hands that is engraved with many symbols used by water cultists. Putting this oddity aside, you politely tell Bastian you have no intention of leaving. He tries another tact, but you are not in the mood for listening. Disappointed, Bastian offers you a gift from one he calls his prophet, in the hope that you will change your mind, and hands over the wooden box before taking his leave, heading back up the long road. Watching him go, several of you discuss the possibility of dealing with this threat now, but you are unsure of Bastian's power and decide to let him leave. Besides, you're not too sure how well several fireball explosions in the middle of Red Larch might affect the local populace. You turn your attention to the box and decide to open it. Inside is a glowing burnt orange coloured orb about a foot in diameter that hums for a short moment before exploding in your faces. The effect is immediate and manifests as an instant heatwave that appears to cover the land for as far as you can see. Not long after, villagers begin appearing half-dressed, wondering what is happening with the weather. You decide to head for your steeds to establish the extent of this strange phenomena, and, after about an hour, reconvene to agree that an area about a mile radius from Red Larch is under the effect of this heatwave. Realising that the conditions are already having exhausting effects on the villagers, you convince the local constable, Harburg Tooth Marilar, to order the village evacuated until the effect is ended. How long that might be, though, is not known. An hour later, you help Harburg lead the entire population a little over a mile from the village, so that camp can be made outside of the heatwave effect and by a water source, whilst ensuring Red Larch remains in sight and not subject to looters. As a number of hours pass by, the effect shows no sign of ending, and some villagers become worried that their homes are becoming tinder dry and that their livestock may die. You decide not to wait for an end to the effect that might not arrive, and with Harburg's blessing, head for Waterdeep to research some countermeasures. You reach Waterdeep after a couple of days. Your steeds are a little worse for wear given what's been asked of them recently. The Griffin Cavalry escort you inside the walls, giving you acquiescence as Lady Helfi is in your presence, so you're not even questioned about your business. You seek digs for the night before heading for the House of Wonder in the Sea Ward, a temple to Mystra, mother of all magic, as you believe this to be the best place to obtain intelligence about the effect manifesting at Red Larch, and wider information that might be available about the elemental cults. You are soon in quiet conversation with two academics who express concern about your account of recent events. They are not too bothered about the heatwave in Red Larch. In effect, they say that should only last a day, initiated by the detonation of what they refer to as a devastation orb. They are more troubled by what you tell of the Elder Elemental Eye. They inform you that it is known this presence was a major threat to another material plane on a world called O-Earth, near a legendary city called Greyhawk. Twice the threat of elemental evil was thwarted there, so it now seems that the Elder Elemental Eye has turned its gaze towards Toril and the Sword Coast, as a means to take shape on the material plane. What is more, they tell you that the Elder Elemental Eye is but a front to convince miscreants to follow a cause. The true evil behind the name is Tharizdun, the Chained God. You stay a while to learn more of Tharizdun and his history, but Quirky seems to withdraw into himself, clearly troubled by the name. He eventually speaks up about his experience in the afterlife, and how he was tempted by Tharizdun and turned down his offers for power. At this point, you all turn to Helfi, who puts on her best poker face and suggests it's time to go. You spend the rest of the day gathering supplies, exchanging spell scrolls and basically freshening up. Quirky visits the House of Inspired Hands to speak to other Nebelun worshippers about his dream. After speaking to a high-ranking patriarch, he understands that his rebuke of Tharizdun and commitment to the Gnome god has endowed him with a power known as Touched by Nebelun. Many gnomes who have come to pray at the temple take the opportunity to meet one so blessed as Quirky, as it is clear that Nebelun favours him. The reluctant celebrity awkwardly accepts his newfound fame before taking his leave to meet with his companions for the journey back to Red Larch. Muezza and Helfi are in close discussion before you are all ready to leave, and wish for you all to make a stop at Rundreth Manor on the way north. The rumours of the Dark Lady are too tempting to ignore for both of them, and they really want to explore the site further. Reluctantly, you all agree. The journey to the ruined manor is interrupted briefly by a Bule attack as you break for a meal, but this is no bother to ones as powerful as you have now developed. You reach the ruins of Rundreth Manor in the evening before sunset and do a few perimeters of the site, discovering the bodies of several water cultists here and there littering the area, with not much effort made to hide them. In fact, you think they are being displayed as a warning to stay away. Landing, you examine the corpses and discover that they died violently from large bite marks. Looking around further, you discover that the raised property has little of its original building intact, but do find the entrance to a cellar. You confer to decide your next step, thinking on the injuries of the water cultists, before choosing to leave and head for Red Larch, as whatever is here is clearly very dangerous. You reach Red Larch the next day and are relieved to discover that the devastation orb's effect has indeed ended and the villagers have returned home, and that Red Larch has not burned to the ground. You spend some time in the Swinging Sword, trying to decide your next step before opting to check on the garrisoning of the 4 haunted keeps, and then head for what you think is the Air Cultist Temple beyond Knife Point Gully. The next day you visit each of the keeps, and you ascertain that cultists of each elemental denomination have made attempts to wrench back control, which has been resisted by your Aarakocra allies, Samula Knights, and the Order of the Gauntlet. This gives you assurance you needed before venturing below to locate the Air Cultists' hideout. Leaving your beasts with the Aarakocra at Feathergale Spire, you head down into what you now know to be the ancient ruins of a dwarven redoubt called Tyre Bessel, which seems to have more recently become the Temple of the Elemental Evil. As you travel through Knife Point Gully, an enormous chasm splits the earth as far as the eye can see in the pervasive subterranean darkness. A crude, narrow stairway hugs the rock alongside the chasm, twisting madly in hairpin turns around sharp outcroppings. Jagged and uneven, the stair threatens to spill you into the chasm's mouth. After several treacherous miles, the stairway terminates on a broad, flat landing that juts out over the immense black chasm. In the gloom, the lost dwarven city lay in ruins beneath the glittering cavern vault. Broken statues stand in the midst of empty plazas, staring sightlessly into the darkness. A huge step pyramid rises at the edge of the precipice, and from the moat that surrounds it, a misty waterfall whispers over the chasm's ledge. The carved reliefs of two dwarfs face one another in profile to complete an arch beyond the ledge. Through the arch, the blocky contours of a lost dwarven city sprawl in the subterranean night. From somewhere within comes an agonized wail, followed by a breathless ramble of whimpering pleas. Then the whole city seems to join the chorus with the screams of creatures mad from torment, unsettling your nerves. A squat stone gatehouse stands at the entrance to the dwarven city. Opening the gates, an arched corridor zigzags past sturdy stone walls where arrow slits squint from every angle. At the far end of this murderous hallway stands the entrance to the lost city of Tabaxi. Opening the door, you head into another hallway, spotting another door to what you think is another building. Before opening it, Helfi spies what looks like a starving cultist tied to an obelisk where the corridor splits towards another direction. Beyond the other door is what you think sounds like pipe music, and opening it, you spy a stone fountain standing in the middle of a grand plaza, its sides sculpted into the shapes of dwarves bearing drums and horns. Near the fountain, several figures in feathered attire play a shrill, discordant tune on flutes made of bone, led by a frustrated, elven-looking humanoid who appears to be trying to get them to play in tune. They all stop when you open the door, the group looking at the elf for direction. As both groups hesitate, the elf breaks the tension by asking if any of you play an instrument. Helfi steps towards him to try a hand at playing, then suddenly reveals her deception by attacking him, dragging the rest of you into a fight. Leilune unleashes a sphere of poison that decimates the unfortunate musicians, whilst also causing a fair amount of damage to her allies. She apologises, saying she isn't used to the spell yet. Moving through the complex, you defeat a group of Kenku that you think were responsible for the cries of agony earlier. You also interrogate the starving cultist, seeing he was one of 3. They all ask to be left alone as they are trying to survive on air alone. Helfi puts them out of their misery with an ease that sets Quirky's teeth on edge. Moving forward, you reach a deep moat surrounding a plaza consisting of a step pyramid encircled by a stone walkway. Stone colonnades to the north and east span the moat and connect the plaza to other parts of the ruined dwarven enclave. A short bridge spans the moat to the south from where you stand. Holding up the bridge and colonnades are enormous statues of dwarves submerged up to their necks. Perched atop the pyramid and watching over the vault is a humanoid figure in a feathered cloak mounted on a large draconic creature. The water in the moat flows west before plunging over the waterfall into a dark abyss, which is the chasm you saw on arrival. The sound of rushing water echoes like thunder within this vault, the ceiling of which glitters with mineral deposits like a perpetual starry night. You withdraw to decide your next step before choosing to engage the Dragon Rider. Rushing across the moat, you reach the step pyramid's edge before a wyvern darts unseen from around the eastern corner and pounces on Helfi. The luck of her patron, and the god knows who else, protect her as the wyvern's poisonous barb misses and she rebukes it with hellish effect. Immediately afterwards, the rider appears, flying 20 feet above the surface to launch a lightning bolt at most of you. However, you dodge the worst of the damage and are able to respond. Within a very short time, both the wyvern and the rider are dead, and only the sounds of the crashing waterfall are left. The Temple of Howling Hatred has tried to resist you, but it is currently found wanting. Thank you for listening to the progress of my Dungeons & Dragons group as they make their way through the Princes of the Apocalypse campaign setting. Watch out for further episodes where we shall learn how the party cope with their incursion into the Air Temple and whether they shall be successful in cleansing it of cultists.